does old age start? There's a good chance your answer to that question depends on how old you are now. A Pew Research Center survey found that people in their 20s thought old age started at 60, while people over 65 thought it started at 75. And then there's my hometown of San Francisco, where 30 is now considered old. Biologically, we humans age at different rates. This has a bit to do with genetics and rather more to do with luck, lifestyle, and social opportunities or stressors. But that's not why there's disagreement about when old age begins. After all, kids mature at different rates too. But there's almost universal consensus about when childhood ends and adulthood begins. The transition from adult to old is different for one simple reason. When we are young, we cannot imagine ourselves old. I mean, of course, we all know that living means aging and aging leads to being old, but for the first many decades of our lives, and actually often well into old age, we like to think of old as something that pertains to other people. For most of us, when it comes to ourselves, it's inconceivable. That was certainly true for me. Before I entered my 50s, in my heart, if not in my brain, I believed I would be 35 until one day, presto, I was 70. No transitional phases, no gradual physical change, no maturation or personal growth. I became a doctor with that mindset, and also with the express goal of making a difference in the lives of people who routinely got the short end of the socioeconomic stick. As a medical student, I worked to raise awareness about health disparities in people of color, women, children, refugees, and LGBTQ people. But although my focus was underserved populations from the very start, I was 7 years into my medical training before I realized there was another group that was systematically neglected in medical research and harmed by healthcare: old people. The disparities are profound. We've got children's hospitals and adult hospitals, pediatric specialists and adult specialists. We have detailed evidence-based guidelines for the treatment of children and adults through all their substages. And what do we have for old people? The age groups most likely to use healthcare? Nursing homes. No specially designed hospitals. No treatment guidelines for how to approach a 70-year-old as compared to a 100-year-old. And drugs and procedures based on research that included few or no members of the age groups that might need them most. It all adds up to a significant problem. The good news is there are solutions, and they are fairly simple. We all know that a population without a name is a population without the visibility and strength to inspire innovation, influence policy, and improve human lives. So to begin with, we can give a name to life's third major stage. First comes childhood, next comes adulthood, and now we start using a new term: elderhood. Language matters. I'm going to guess that, like me, most of you have never been horrified when somebody referred to you as an adult. But every day, all around this country, people refuse to be associated with the words that without inherent prejudice describe their age. A friend told me a story about a colleague of hers who said, "When I grow old, I want to have a doctor like Louise," which is a lovely thing to say. The problem is the speaker was 88 years old. We have created a world in which even 88-year-olds don't want to be considered old. The situation is so serious that when aging adults are polled about their preferences among the words for old age, words like senior, old, elderly, geriatric, the results show that no one likes any of them. I mean, come on, look at the word old. It's little and cute, right? It's got rounded shapes. It's got enough height to give it heft and stature. It's easy to write, type, and pronounce, and all its long existence, it has never done anything to hurt anyone. Let's face it, the problem here is not with the word old. It's with how we think about old age. We deny it, we malign it, we denigrate it. We refuse to approach it with the same enthusiasm, creativity, and sense of possibility we routinely apply to childhood and adulthood. Basically, we make it hard and undesirable, and then we complain that it's hard and undesirable. In some ways, this human response to old age makes sense. With age comes greater chances of losing roles, functions, and friends, and a continuously increasing risk of disease, debility, and death. That last is often cited as one of the unique challenges of elderhood. It ends in death. But far more important than our deaths is the quality of the living that precedes them. We know we can influence human quality of life and lifespans because in the United States in 1900, the average age at death was 49, and today it is 79. Even now, the wealthiest Americans, the higher income Americans, live 10 to 20 years longer than poorer Americans. And there's a 50-year difference in lifespan between the people of Botswana and those of Japan. In shaping our experience of elderhood, when we live matters as much as where. In Western countries before the Industrial Revolution, elders were in a position of social privilege. Being closer to death meant being closer to God. You got the front row seat in church. People listened when you talked. You often controlled the family finances. These days, being old has so many negative stereotypes that most people don't want to admit they're old until the last years of their elderhood. So you might be wondering when we do become old. Well, across countries and for the last many thousand years, old age has generally been viewed as beginning between the ages of 60 and 70. By then, most of the bodily changes we associate with old age are well underway and beginning to assert their cumulative impact. Some of you just found out you are or about to be old. Congratulations, and I mean that sincerely. Not only have you not died, which is a really good thing, by the way, but there is so much more to elderhood than the few years of frailty that commonly precede death, and no less importantly, there are so many ways to improve our lives as we move through all the substages of elderhood, including the frail years. With elderhood comes resolution of some of the greatest pitfalls and problems of adulthood. It offers more leisure time and a surer sense of one's priorities. Life has fewer options, and for most of us, that turns out to be a good thing. Combined with greater self-knowledge and the life clock imposed by death's increasing proximity, our decisions become clearer and surer. We think about those lost roles and functions as a negative, but those lost roles and functions are also opportunities to try out new experiences, activities, pastimes, and types of work. In surveys across cultures, elders report greater happiness, less anxiety, and higher life satisfaction than adults. Now, biologically and socially, elderhood creeps up on us. Look at me. I've got gray hair. I've got wrinkles. I've got parts that now don't look or behave the way they used to, and they never will again, and I am still in adulthood. So here's something else we can do to make elderhood better, healthier, and more meaningful in our lives. We can stop denying and minimizing it, and instead recognize its true size and significance. We can see it as the diverse, decades-long life stage it is, just like childhood and adulthood, and acknowledge that, like them, it has challenges and opportunities, sorrows and joys. After all, if most of us become old somewhere between the ages of 60 and 70, that means that most of us are also going to spend more years in elderhood than we did in childhood. Best of all, because of our species' unprecedented aging, we 21st century humans are the ones who get to design this new, nearly universal elderhood. Despite these possibilities, the media is almost uniformly alarmist about the world's aging population. They like to use words like problem, burden, and silver tsunami, as if the growing numbers, seriously, silver tsunami, as if the growing numbers of elders are like a vast natural force that's going to come and destroy everything in its path. Really? Are they saying that the years of short lives and regularly dying children were somehow the good old days? Let's hope not. The fact is that living into elderhood gives us more years to enjoy life and to contribute to the world, if the world lets us. Today, society is often more barrier than scaffold. Take medicine. We like to think of it as objective, impartial. But in reality, it is a microcosm of societal blind spots and biases. For example, vaccines prevent illness. We give them at different ages based on a person's biology, immune function, and social behaviors. So the CDC recommends 17 vaccine schedules from birth through age 18 and 3 or 4 for adults between the ages of 19 and 64. But in 2020, it still recommends just one schedule for everyone age 65 and older. This goes against the most fundamental assumptions of the program and of vaccines. It discounts the considerable biobehavioral differences between the average 65-year-old, 85-year-old, and 105-year-old. Now, you don't have to be a doctor to know this. We all know it intuitively. As children, we may look at our grandparents, people who are likely to be still working, running around after us, having sex, and we think, they're old. And then we look at our great-grandparents, people who are maybe moving more slowly, who are shorter, who are retired, and we think, they are really old. And if we happen to know someone who's lived a full century, the words ancient and frail may come to mind. Those external changes mirror equally significant changes in our organs and immune function. The very same changes addressed by vaccine subschedules, by specialized hospitals, doctors, and clinics for children and adults. One of the reasons I care so much about this is that I'm a geriatrician. If that word is new for you, you're in good company. A geriatrician is a doctor for elders, the way a pediatrician is a doctor for children, and an internist is a doctor for adults. Only family doctors take care of people across the lifespan. Most people are familiar with the word pediatrician, and you probably also know that because of their specialized training, it makes way more sense to take your kid to a pediatrician. The pediatrician will take better care of your child. But many smart, educated people haven't heard the word geriatrician, and most elders never get to see one. How can that be? Especially because older adults are 1/6 of the American population, but account for up to 40% of hospital stays. By contrast, the quarter of the population in childhood account for 6% of hospital stays. The lower numbers of adults and children needing hospital care are great, and it may be in part due to the fact that they are almost always treated by specialists. Medical schools in this country devote months to pediatrics and years to adult medicine, but at best just weeks to geriatrics. The same disparities that we see in medical education, we also see in medical research. In 1986, the NIH mandated that studies include women and minorities because they found that when those groups were treated based on research that had excluded them because they were different, they experienced different, often worse outcomes. In 1998, they mandated the inclusion of children for the same reasons. And when did they mandate the inclusion of elders? 2019, 33 years later. Exclusions have consequences. Consider most people's reactions when they hear that an elder didn't do well with a particular disease or treatment. Even clinicians will say, "What did you expect? She's so old," or "He's so sick." Most don't consider that the treatment itself might have done the person grievous harm, because the studies on which it was based did not include people her age, or because they didn't include the outcomes that he cared about most, such as going home, not into a nursing home, or being able to eat and walk and talk for himself. This matters in every sector of life. And so it's important that we recognize that elderhood is different than childhood and adulthood. And that brings me to my final point, which is that often we blame old age for problems we have created or neglected. We need to apply to it the same care and creativity we already apply to childhood and adulthood. This matters in every part of life. For example, go for a walk in a public park almost anywhere, and you will find playgrounds for children and playing fields for adults. For elders, there aren't really dedicated spaces that allow opportunities for people throughout the substages of elderhood to engage in comparable physical and social outdoor activities from pickleball to Tai Chi. Or consider how we make our houses and apartments into homes. It's easy to find cute, colorful furniture for kids and a wide array of stylish options for adults. But what we have for elders has very few options, and most of it is frankly so ugly that most people won't use it, even when it would increase their comfort, safety, and independence. We can do so much better, and we owe it to ourselves and everyone we love to do better. After all, when we are in elderhood, we do not want to be met with self-defeating stereotypes and needless limitations. We want what we have always wanted: opportunities, a society that recognizes our unique strengths, and a culture that responds to our limitations with creativity and innovation. Like people of all backgrounds and ages, we want equity in language, healthcare, parks, home design, and everything else. We can have all this. It's up to us. Every day, by our words, actions, and priorities, we get to choose. Will we create the old age we fear and dread, or will we create an elderhood that we can look forward to and enjoy? I'm choosing the latter, and I hope you will as well. Thank you.